Good afternoon. Welcome back. Well, the other developing story this afternoon, SAFA, the SA Football Association, announcing Hugo Broos as the new Bafana Coach. The Belgian coach will succeed Molefi Ntseki, who was sacked. He failed to qualify for the AFCON tournament in Cameroon. Minenhle Hlela has been at the SAFA media conference. He's just back now. Hasn't even sat down. We've dragged him into our studio. Minenhle, good afternoon to you. I've got to tell you, to me, it looks like a panic appointment. Tommy is a nicer person than I. She is quite inspired by this appointment. Where do you fall?
Stephen, I think had it been the so-called Benny McCarthy that's been rumored for the last couple of weeks that he will be taking over, I think there would have been still question marks, you know, considering what Bafana failing to qualify for AFCON and the performances and the results that we've seen in the couple of months. But there would have been hope, because Benny McCarthy has proven that he's able to get into the players' minds and able to, you know, push them where they play their hearts out. We saw that at Cape Town City. We saw that at AmaZulu, or we're currently seeing that at AmaZulu. But then the Hugo Broos situation is, for many South Africans, I feel there's going to be a lot more doubt than there was picking up Benny McCarthy. Moreover, because for them, it might be the same scenario we've seen in the past where European coach is coming in to take over, which will be a very big problem for them. For many fans and many wanting a South African who understand the culture, who understand the football, who understand the difficulties. So with Hugo Broos, I imagine more doubts, and I won't be surprised, Stephen, if we're back here in a year's time talking about this.
Well, it's the only question that really matters. I mean, it's a bit like, you know, talking about some of the big jobs in government. Will the person last their full term? 5 years is the appointment. It would seem unlikely. To be fair, I mean, he's my favourite football philosopher, but if it was Benny, I don't think that he would necessarily last 5 years either. That says that there's something wrong with the structure of the job.
And it's been going on for years. You know, the complaints that have been coming on, we've changed coaches over and time again. Hugo Broos is the 18th coach, and is in his name going into that hat. You consider the likes of Stuart Baxter, they've done the stint twice. Jomo Sono, excuse me, he's done the stint times. This is our 18th coach that we've had to call up. So it says that, you know, there's obviously a problem. The players change, the coaches change, but the results still come back. But when you look at it critically, the decisions that were made, the decisions that are made, at what point they are made of, and you touched on it, emergency hiring. Because 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago, we were told that it had been finalized. We're going to have a coach, Carlos Queiroz, the front runner. The night before he's supposed to be announced, it's called off. And SAFA, you know, not being able to give us clarity and be able to give us or answer our questions that we put forward doesn't particularly put them in a very good position. It doesn't particularly put Bafana in a good position where we back them and support them, because there's so many question marks and so many questions that are not being answered by the administrative itself.
You've got to wonder if it's not just the job that's tainted, but, I mean, Benny McCarthy, he still hasn't really been a coach for that long, right? I mean, a bit sort of green in terms of experience. And the reason I say this is that was one of the criticisms around Molefi Ntseki. Hadn't coached one of the glamour clubs, hadn't won any of the big tournaments with any of the PSL clubs. And it gets back to the decision-making process. What are the right credentials for a Bafana coach?
I think it goes, they're played by ear. Wherever the wind, it feels like at times, where the wind blows, it seems like the administration moves them to that side. Because even the question, what made Hugo Broos stand out? And the only conclusion that one could come on is that he won the AFCON with a young Cameroon side in 2017. Okay, that's nice. But beyond that, what is his objectives? What's been put on the table? And unfortunately, we're getting answers. He's in the country next week. He'll be able to detail himself. Because the way it works, the SAFA Technical Committee suggests to the NEC of the coach they feel would be best to take over the Bafana job. So it's up to the NEC, the executives of SAFA, to decide. If the Technical Committee says, yo, we think Stephen Khotas is the best man for the job. If the NEC feels, is there anybody else around? Oh, Stephen, we'll take you. And that's what it feels like at times, that there isn't a considerable investigation of who is the best coach to take our football forward and the men's national team to the heights that we hope we can get to.
Just be very clear, I'm not available. So how much of it is about managing the team and how much of it is about managing SAFA? Because sometimes, and I mean, our football is not only football, it's not the only sport where this happens. It seems to me it is a little bit about managing SAFA.
It is, and we've seen it in the past. And people were saying that maybe Benny was not best option We saw him as a player, the clashes he had with SAFA when they called him up, and the kind of conditions that he wanted in terms of insurance, payments, and all of that. Would he have been given the space that he's required, that he wants to do right now? Because SAFA works in its own limitations. So it's going to be the issue of the problem of you as a coach working within those limitations. And those limitations as a coach then start to possess or produce problems for you. Having to play in the COSAFA Cup, having to play a Chan tournament, not having the right players because those tournaments fall out of the FIFA calendar, but then expected yet to still win, having training programs, coaching programs, and all these other things. And it seems now it's a really big balance to try and get right. And when the results don't come in for the national team, and when we don't qualify for AFCONs and World Cups, you know, the questions and the fires, the guns come out and you're fired, you know, almost immediately after we fail. And that was the question that I put forward to Danny Jordaan. He has 5 years. In that space of 5 years, what does specifically the contract say? Then you start getting confused. Well, the first thing he has to do is build a base. Okay? If he doesn't qualify,
how do you judge that?
If he doesn't qualify for the next AFCON, do we fire him? We've got World Cup qualifiers starting in September. If he doesn't qualify for that World Cup, do we fire him or does he stay? And not getting those answers to those questions will further create, you know, this gap between the South African Football Association, the media, and the South African football-loving fans.
And I mean, in the meantime, probably the thing he needs to hope is that AmaZulu don't take the lead this year. Because if they do,
that will be something interesting. That will be something interesting. But AmaZulu is having a press conference tomorrow themselves, and I'm going to put my money on it. Sandile Zungu probably is not a happy man because, you know, he had put it together, a perfect assignment at AmaZulu. It worked out very early for them. They're pushing for the league titles. And here comes along the national team trying to disturb those plans. And we might see, you know, maybe a bit of friction between, you know, the AmaZulu administrators and probably SAFA administrators. This is just me assuming. We're not saying it's going to happen like that. This is just me assuming. But that kind of friction can actually happen in football, especially because we're in a sport where competition is tough and everybody's trying to win. If you take eggs out of my basket, I'm not going to be too happy about it, and I'm going to voice my opinion about it, and I'm going to be expecting that from Sandile Zungu tomorrow from the AmaZulu conference.
You and I both know Sandile Zungu. I wouldn't mess with him. A very nice guy, don't get me wrong. Love talking to him, but I wouldn't want to mess with him. I wouldn't be on his wrong side. So we have all of these things going on, right? And there's always a debate around whether you want an outsider as a coach, come in, sort out the structure, do different things, you know, look at things differently. I mean, during the World Cup in 2010, that was sort of part of the idea. Or an insider, someone who can call on coaches, someone who comes with legitimacy already. Hugo Broos, I mean, I've looked very briefly at his coaching biography. It doesn't seem to have any experience of our footballing culture at all.
It's not too exciting. It's not appealing. And those were the concerns. I mean, he's had 2 stints with 2 African clubs in Algeria. As I said before, Cameroon, the success of that. But beyond that, it's mostly European and it's mostly been in Abu Dhabi. But in terms of, that's the question we're hoping the answers we're going to get next week when he touches into the country. How much of South African football does he know? What does he actually, how many players does he know who play overseas, locally, the coaches? How is he going to fit into the structure that we've seen for the last 5 to 6 years, where the assistant coaches to the Bafana coaches make up for the under-23 coach, make up for the under-20, under-17, and so on. Is he going to go through that same route? Is he going to come in and disrupt that program? And that was the most frustrating thing, is that we had the next Bafana coach in a laptop via Zoom where he couldn't hear us and we couldn't hear him. And now we're supposed to find out that this is the next man who's going to take our football forward. And when we put questions to the associations about what is he going to do, and we're given answers, he'll be here next week, he'll tell you everything, and we'll know from there. So does the association actually know what he wants to do? Is he going to be able to do what the association is hoping that he's going to be able to do? Again, I go to the point. It seems like in a year's time, we might be back here because the number of questions that are not answered right now doesn't, provoke any confidence that, we're on the right track. And I won't be surprised, Stephen, we'll be talking next year. Jose Mourinho might give us a call and decide he wants to come through. Who knows? It's just in shambles right now, and it doesn't give us any confidence.
You know, when a reporter says, I wouldn't be surprised, it means I know. I know you have
hopefully I'll win on the lotto and lose on this one. But like I say, it doesn't paint a good picture right now.
There's so many different things that are about it. And I mean, we had the conversation when Molefi Ntseki was fired. You know, it goes back to a deeper problem within the structure of football. That takes us to a conversation about particularly two people, not one but two. And we end up with a very complicated conversation around whether the leadership at our football has just been in power, frankly, for too long. And I'm sure the phone calls management will get, because I dare mention his name, but Danny Jordaan's been there, well, forever.
And he's seen it all, right from 1996. He's seen the ups of 1996 and the decline AFCON after AFCON until we get to a point where we don't qualify for AFCON, and we're qualifying for AFCON based on being hosts. And let's not take away what he's done and landing the FIFA World Cup. I think it's an extraordinary achievement by him and his administration, along with Dr. Ivan Causes. But we've seen the transition of football worldwide, and the younger minds that are coming into the game. Just talk football-wise, just talk coaching-wise. If you see what's happening in Europe, the likes of Jurgen Klopp with Pep Guardiola, those are young minds coming into the system and trying to change the system or take the system into ever greater heights. What we find ourselves, the problem is, are we on the administrative side? Are we bringing in those young minds? Because we see the young coaches in the PSL coming through. We're seeing them do great things. We're seeing youngsters come through the ranks. But on the administrative side, in terms of new innovative ideas that will ensure that we're able to progress,
the most eloquent sigh I've ever heard. Minenhle Hlela, thanks very much indeed. Look, such an important conversation. We'll see. Everybody, I think, is going to wish Hugo Broos the best of luck and Bafana the best of luck. We all want well for the national team, but the questions are going to remain.